sometimes you get the love of your life when you're too young and you don't know how to handle it. And so I think that was me.
Country music is built on stories of love and heartbreak, but not every romance was made for the spotlight. Behind the hits and headlines were secret affairs that reshaped careers, ended marriages, and changed the course of the genre. Some were whispered about in backrooms, while others exploded into public view. Here are 15 hidden love affairs that changed country music forever. Number 15. Hank Williams Sr. and Bobby Jett. Hank Williams Sr. was the voice that defined the soul of country music, a man whose songs became the blueprint for heartbreak in the genre. In the middle of his personal struggles, his relationship with Bobby Jett brought moments of rare peace and affection. Friends later recalled that, despite the chaos around him, Hank seemed lighter and warmer in her company. It was a brief connection, but one that showed his ability to love deeply, even in the most unstable times. His classics, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and Your Cheatin' Heart, would later feel even more haunting against the backdrop of that hidden romance. The relationship began in 1952, during one of Hank's many separations from Audrey Shepard. Bobby, a striking young woman known in Nashville's music circles, first caught Hank's eye at a small industry gathering. Those who were there remembered him leaning in close as they talked, smiling in a way he rarely did during that troubled period. Within weeks, they were meeting privately, sometimes in dimly lit diners on the outskirts of town, other times in borrowed cabins far from the city. Bobby was said to have a calming effect on him, easing the restless energy that often led him back to the bottle. When she became pregnant, Hank quietly began making arrangements for her to stay with friends, away from gossip. Then, on New Year's Day, 1953, before he could see the child, Hank died suddenly while traveling to a show. Just days later, Bobby gave birth to a daughter, Jett Williams. To avoid scandal, the baby was quietly adopted, her true parentage sealed in court records for over 30 years, until Jett fought and won the right to be recognized as Hank's daughter. This concealed romance became another thread in Hank's complex legacy, showing a man who loved with intensity but lived with secrets. It reminded fans that the same restless heart that poured into his songs also led him down paths he could never publicly acknowledge. And if Hank's hidden love left a legacy that would outlive him, the next affair would ignite speculation that refused to die. Loretta Lynn was one of country music's most fearless truth-tellers, a woman who transformed her life story into anthems of strength and defiance. Even in the most trying years of her marriage to Oliver Doolittle Lynn, her rumored bonds with other men reportedly brought her comfort and friendship she couldn't always find at home. Those close to her described moments of shared laughter and quiet companionship that allowed her to let down her guard. When placed alongside her powerhouse performances of Coal Miner's Daughter and You Ain't Woman Enough, the whispers of these connections only deepened the intrigue surrounding her. Loretta and Doo's marriage was famously volatile, a roller coaster of fierce devotion and constant conflict. His infidelity was an open secret in Nashville, but by the mid-1970s, the rumor mill had turned its gaze toward Loretta. One story that persisted for years involved a fellow Grand Ole Opry performer with whom she allegedly shared more than a stage. People recalled spotting them lingering together long after rehearsals ended, their heads bent close in quiet conversation. There were tales of joint songwriting sessions stretching into the early morning hours, of the two slipping out of industry events together, and of unexplained late-night visits to her tour bus. Though Loretta laughed off these stories in interviews, never confirming or denying them, fans began to listen to her other woman songs with fresh ears, wondering if they were drawn from personal moments she could never admit to publicly. The rumors became part of her legend, giving her work an edge that felt lived in and authentic. Though unproven, these stories only added to Loretta's mystique, reinforcing her image as a woman unafraid to live and love on her own terms. It made her music sharper, her story more layered, and her place in country history even more compelling. And if Loretta's rumored loves remained in the shadows, the next affair would be preserved in heartfelt letters that eventually saw the light of day. Patsy Cline reigned as the queen of country heartbreak, a singer whose voice could carry equal measures of strength and vulnerability. Her relationship with fellow artist Faron Young, whether romantic or platonic, was remembered by friends as a warm and spirited bond that seemed to brighten her days. They were known to tease each other playfully, share private jokes, and find comfort in one another's company while navigating the pressures of fame. When she performed songs like Crazy and She's Got You, that spark between them seemed to make its way into her delivery. They first met in the late 1950s while sharing a bill on the same tour, and their connection was immediate. Faron, a charismatic performer with a quick smile, often sought Patsy's company between sets, and she was just as quick to meet him halfway. On long bus rides, the two would sit together near the back, talking and laughing for hours, sometimes exchanging notes written in playful, teasing tones. Band members recalled more than one night when they disappeared from the group after a show, returning later with smiles they didn't explain. Over time, handwritten letters began to surface, brief, affectionate, and often peppered with inside jokes that hinted at a relationship deeper than friendship. Though both were married at different points, their bond endured quietly, with Faron speaking of Patsy fondly for decades after her tragic death in 1963. For those who saw them together, the question wasn't whether there was love, but how much of it the world never got to see. Whether an unspoken romance or simply an unusually deep friendship, the connection between Patsy and Faron became part of Nashville's storytelling tradition. It showed that sometimes the most enduring love stories aren't the ones that are declared, but the ones that are quietly felt. And if this bond stayed just out of reach of certainty, the next affair would shatter genre boundaries and pull Hollywood into country's spotlight. Tammy Wynette was the first lady of country music, a powerhouse vocalist whose songs became emotional touchstones for millions. At the height of her fame, she radiated glamour on stage, yet carried a vulnerability that drew fans even closer. During one of the lonelier chapters of her personal life, her rumored connection with Hollywood's Burt Reynolds was said to give her a sense of fun and confidence she hadn't felt in years. The friendship, and possible romance, brought a sparkle to her that friends noticed immediately. Her performances of Stand By Your Man and DIVORCE during this period seemed to have an extra warmth behind them. They met in the late 1970s, when Tammy was navigating the aftermath of her split from George Jones. Burt was already a major box office star, known for his charm and easy swagger, and the two reportedly crossed paths at a charity event in Nashville. According to those present, Burt made a point of spending most of the evening at Tammy's side, cracking jokes and making her laugh until her cheeks hurt. Over the following months, whispers circulated about secret dinners in Los Angeles and discreet weekends at Burt's Florida home. While Tammy publicly insisted they were just friends, insiders told of phone calls that lasted hours and of the pair exchanging small, thoughtful gifts. The media caught wind of the rumors when the two were photographed together, sending both Nashville and Hollywood into a frenzy over the unexpected pairing. Whether platonic or romantic, the connection between Tammy and Burt blurred the line between country royalty and Hollywood stardom. It gave fans a tantalizing what-if story that still lingers today. And if this rumored fling brought glitz to country's doorstep, the next affair would spark an open feud that divided the genre for years. Dolly Parton's career was built on more than just her dazzling voice and songwriting genius. It was powered by her ability to connect with people on a personal level. While her decades-long marriage to Carl Dean remained one of country music's most private unions, there were whispers of a relationship outside that marriage that was said to bring Dolly deep companionship and creative energy. Friends described the man as someone who made her light up in a way few others could, inspiring her both personally and professionally. During this time, performances of Jolene and Here You Come Again seemed to carry an added emotional charge. The alleged relationship took place in the late 1970s, a period when Dolly was transitioning into mainstream superstardom. According to industry gossip, the man was a songwriter she collaborated with closely, and their time together in the studio often stretched well beyond scheduled hours. Observers noticed the pair lingering over meals, laughing quietly in the corners of crowded industry events, and exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Rumors claimed they took occasional getaways under the guise of writing retreats, returning with songs that felt unusually intimate. Dolly, ever the master of keeping her personal life out of the headlines, neither confirmed nor denied the relationship, often sidestepping the topic with humor. But those who worked with her during that era insisted there was more than just music being made between them. This possible hidden romance became part of the fascination with Dolly's mystique, a reminder that even the most open of entertainers can keep some chapters of their lives entirely private. And if Dolly's alleged love was kept behind closed doors, the next affair would be impossible to hide once the press got involved. Johnny Cash was already a legend in the making when he met June Carter, a vivacious performer with a quick wit and a heart as big as her voice. Before their marriage, their connection was undeniable, playful on-stage banter, private moments of mutual encouragement, and an ease in each other's presence that drew attention wherever they went. Both were married to other people at the time, but their growing bond became a source of light and support for each of them. Songs like Jackson and It Ain't Me Babe would later immortalize that chemistry. Their affair reportedly began on the road in the early 1960s, when touring schedules kept them in close company for weeks at a time. Witnesses spoke of late-night conversations in tour buses, stolen moments backstage, and letters exchanged between cities. Johnny, struggling with substance abuse, leaned heavily on June's steadying influence, while June found herself drawn to Johnny's intensity and vulnerability. It wasn't long before rumors began to swirl in Nashville, with whispers of the two being seen together in small-town diners and roadside motels. Their spouses at the time, Vivian Liberto and Edwin Nix, were not blind to the growing closeness, and the tension it caused only fueled the media frenzy. By the time their affair became an open secret, it was clear to nearly everyone that this was a love neither could walk away from. Though controversial, their relationship ultimately became one of country music's most enduring love stories, showing that sometimes the most complicated beginnings can lead to lasting devotion. And if Johnny and June's romance eventually stepped into the light, the next affair would remain shrouded in secrecy for decades. George Jones was already known as one of country music's most emotive voices when he met Tammy Wynette, the rising star whose own songs were quickly climbing the charts. Before their marriage, their connection was magnetic, marked by affectionate gestures and undeniable stage chemistry. Friends said George became calmer and more grounded in her presence, while Tammy seemed to glow when George was nearby. When they sang together, as in early performances of Take Me, audiences could sense the spark between them before a single rumor had spread. Their romance began in the late 1960s, when Tammy was still married to songwriter Don Chappell. George, recently divorced, became a frequent visitor to Tammy's home under the pretense of musical collaboration. Stories quickly spread that George had openly declared his love for Tammy in front of Chappell himself, setting off a heated argument that ended with Tammy leaving her marriage soon after. On tour, they were inseparable, eating meals together, riding the same buses, and disappearing for hours between shows. In small-town venues across the South, whispers followed them from one dressing room to another. By the time the press picked up the story, their relationship was already well beyond rumor, and the couple soon became one of the most talked-about duos in country music. What began as an affair became one of country's most passionate and turbulent love stories, filled with highs and lows that played out in public. And if George and Tammy's romance burned brightly for the world to see, the next love story was kept behind closed doors, known only to those in the inner circle. Willie Nelson had a reputation as a troubadour both on and off stage, his easy charm and soulful delivery making him one of the most beloved figures in country music. In the late 1960s, his relationship with Connie Koepke began as a source of comfort and inspiration during a time when his career was shifting. Friends recalled that Willie seemed more relaxed around her, often writing songs in her company and crediting her for helping him through some of his most creative bursts. It was during this time that he recorded heartfelt tracks like Funny How Time Slips Away, their tenderness mirroring the affection he shared with Connie. The affair began while Willie was still married to Shirley Collie, his second wife. According to Willie himself, Shirley discovered the relationship in the most dramatic way possible, by opening a letter from a hospital informing her of Connie giving birth to Willie's child, Paula. Before that revelation, Willie and Connie's meetings had been quiet affairs, often held in the back rooms of Texas honky-tonks or during overnight road trips between gigs. Connie traveled with him more often than most people realized, and bandmates described the way she would wait by the stage, smiling, as Willie played into the night. Once the truth came out, the scandal threatened to overshadow Willie's music, but his laid-back persona and unapologetic honesty turned the story into another chapter of his outlaw image. Their relationship would go on to last for over a decade, producing both music and family, and showing that sometimes scandal can evolve into lasting connection. And if Willie's love story blurred the line between controversy and commitment, the next affair would blur the line between professional collaboration and personal devotion. Kristofferson was a poet warrior of country music, blending rugged charm with literary depth in a way that captivated audiences. When he met singer-songwriter Rita Coolidge, their relationship became a creative and emotional partnership that inspired some of their best work. Friends recalled that Kris seemed softer around her, more willing to share his vulnerabilities, while Rita described Kris as one of the most passionate men she had ever known. Their duets, including Help Me Make It Through the Night and Loving Arms, carried a warmth that reflected the affection they shared offstage. Their romance began in the early 1970s, after meeting during a recording session. Almost immediately, the two were inseparable, spending long nights in studios working on songs and equally long mornings lingering over coffee. They toured together extensively, with Rita often joining Kris on stage for intimate duets that fueled speculation about the depth of their bond. Friends spoke of the couple disappearing from parties to take walks alone, and of love letters passed between them during weeks apart. While the relationship was widely celebrated at first, it began to fray under the pressures of constant travel, demanding schedules, and the weight of two rising careers. And by the mid-1970s, the romance had faded, but the songs it inspired remained as proof of the love they once shared. Though their relationship ended, it left behind a body of work that still resonates with fans, showing how personal passion can fuel artistic brilliance. And if Kris and Rita's affair gave country music some of its most heartfelt moments, the next love story would give it one of its biggest scandals. Glen Campbell was already a household name by the late 1970s, with a string of crossover hits and a polished charm that made him a favorite on both the country and pop charts. When he began dating Tanya Tucker, the fiery young star nearly 20 years his junior, the relationship quickly became the talk of Nashville. Friends noted that Glen seemed energized by Tanya's wild spirit, while Tanya often said Glen brought a sense of sophistication to her life. Their performances together, including their rendition of Dream Lover, carried an electric chemistry that fans couldn't ignore. Their romance began in 1980, and from the start it was as passionate as it was volatile. The two were inseparable, attending award shows arm in arm and giving interviews where they openly professed their affection for one another. But behind the scenes, the relationship was a whirlwind of highs and lows. Friends recalled heated arguments in dressing rooms, followed by tearful reconciliations hours later. The tabloids had a field day, running stories about public spats, surprise breakups, and sudden reconciliations. Both admitted later that their time together was marked by intense love and equally intense conflict, fueled by strong personalities and busy schedules. In the end, the romance burned too brightly to last, leaving behind a trail of unforgettable moments and plenty of headlines. Though their love didn't endure, it became one of the most famous romances in country music history, a cautionary tale of what happens when two strong forces collide. And if Glen and Tanya's affair played out under the glare of public attention, the next relationship would take place in shadows, only coming to light years later. Merle Haggard was the outlaw poet of country music, his songs filled with grit, honesty, and hard-earned wisdom. When he began a relationship with fellow singer Bonnie Owens, it was as much a creative union as it was a romantic one. Friends described how Bonnie's calm demeanor balanced Merle's restless energy, and how she often encouraged him to take risks musically. During this time, Merle recorded some of his most beloved songs, including Today I Started Loving You Again, a track co-written with Bonnie that reflected the intimacy they shared. The two met while Bonnie was still married to Buck Owens, but her marriage was crumbling. As her friendship with Merle deepened, it soon blossomed into romance. They began performing together, their harmonies blending seamlessly and their onstage glances leaving little doubt about their feelings. Offstage, they built a life that revolved around music, long nights writing songs, sharing meals on the road, and supporting each other through the ups and downs of touring life. Eventually, they married, but the pressures of constant travel and Merle's increasingly busy schedule began to take their toll. By the time their marriage ended, they had already created a lasting musical legacy together. Though their romantic relationship ended, Bonnie continued to perform with Merle for years, proof that the respect and affection between them ran deep. And if Merle and Bonnie showed how love could survive even after romance fades, the next affair would prove that some love stories leave nothing but heartbreak in their wake. Conway Twitty was the smooth-voiced crooner, whose ballads made him one of the most popular artists in country history. His long-running professional partnership with Loretta Lynn became one of the most celebrated duos the genre had ever seen. Behind the scenes, there were whispers of a deeper connection, with friends saying, Conway brought out Loretta's playful side, while Loretta seemed to make Conway more relaxed and open. Their duets, including After the Fire Is Gone and Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man, seemed to radiate genuine affection that fans couldn't help but interpret as real. The rumors began not long after they started recording together in the early 1970s. They toured extensively, often traveling alone together between shows, and were known to spend hours in private conversation before and after performances. Band members told stories of finding them sitting side by side in empty arenas long after sound checks, talking quietly and laughing. While both were married at the time, their chemistry on stage only fueled public speculation. Neither ever confirmed a romance, but certain glances, lingering touches during performances, and the unmistakable warmth in their duets kept the gossip alive for decades. For some fans, the emotional depth of their songs was too authentic to be purely professional. Whether the connection was friendship or something more, it became part of the legend of both artists, showing how music can blur the line between art and life. And if Conway and Loretta's rumored bond left fans guessing, the next affair would leave no doubt at all about its passion. Porter Wagoner was already a star when Dolly Parton joined his television show in 1967, but their partnership would elevate them both to new heights. From the start, there was a warmth between them that audiences could feel, a closeness that seemed to go beyond the scripted banter of the program. Friends recalled that Porter was deeply protective of Dolly, while she brought a spark and freshness to his performances. Their duets, like The Last Thing on My Mind and Just Someone I Used to Know, carried a tenderness that fueled endless speculation. Their relationship began as a strictly professional arrangement, with Porter offering Dolly a national stage, and Dolly injecting new life into Porter's show. But as they spent more time together, the bond deepened. They toured side by side, sharing buses, dressing rooms, and countless hours on stage. Rumors of romance began circulating among fans and the press, fed by the way they looked at each other during performances. Behind the scenes, there were reports of late-night talks about their dreams and fears, of Porter championing Dolly's songwriting, and of Dolly confiding in him about her personal struggles. While both denied a romantic relationship, their eventual split in the mid-1970s was emotional and public, culminating in Dolly writing "I Will Always Love You" as a farewell to Porter, a gesture that only added to the belief that theirs was more than friendship. Whether romantic or not, the intensity of their connection was undeniable, and it left a lasting mark on both their careers. And if Porter and Dolly's relationship kept fans guessing for decades, the next one would be a fiery love that the world saw unfold in real time. Johnny Paycheck was country music's bad boy, a rebel with a rough edge and a knack for turning his turbulent life into unforgettable songs. When he fell for a woman named Sharon during the height of his fame, their relationship was a blend of passion and chaos. Friends said Sharon had a calming influence on Johnny in his better moments, and he often credited her with giving him a reason to keep going. During this period, his performances of songs like She's All I Got carried an emotional sincerity that fans linked directly to his feelings for her. Their romance began in the early 1970s, when Johnny was riding a wave of success but battling personal demons. They met at a small club after one of his shows, and witnesses remembered the instant connection between them, the way they laughed together, oblivious to everyone else in the room. Sharon began traveling with Johnny, standing side stage during concerts, and the two were often spotted holding hands in small-town diners along the tour route. But Johnny's temper and substance abuse put strain on the relationship, leading to explosive arguments that occasionally spilled into public view. The gossip columns seized on their ups and downs, painting their love as a volatile mix of devotion and destruction. Their time together was brief, but unforgettable, leaving behind a legacy of songs and stories that captured the wild intensity of their bond. And if Johnny and Sharon's love was a storm, the final affair on our list was a slow-burning fire that changed the course of country music forever. Hank Williams Jr. grew up in the shadow of a legend, but by the late 1970s, he had forged his own path with a rowdy, rock-infused brand of country music. In the midst of his rising fame, he met Becky White, a relationship that friends say brought out a softer, more grounded side of him. Becky's presence seemed to calm Hank's famously restless spirit, and their connection gave him a stability he hadn't known before. When he sang ballads like "Women I've Never Had" during this time, there was a warmth in his delivery that fans noticed immediately. The two met at a concert in 1975, and their chemistry was instant. Becky quickly became a fixture in Hank's life, traveling with him on the road and appearing at public events by his side. They were seen at honky-tonks, fishing tournaments, and even small family gatherings where Hank introduced her with pride. Their romance coincided with a turning point in Hank's career as he transitioned into the outlaw country scene and embraced a more rebellious image. Yet behind the rowdy stage persona, those close to him said Becky was the person who kept him balanced, urging him to slow down and take care of himself. In 1977, the couple married, but the pressures of fame and Hank's relentless touring schedule eventually drove them apart. By 1983, the marriage had ended, but Becky remained a significant figure in Hank's life story. Their love may not have lasted, but it left a lasting impression on Hank's music and on the fans who saw a different side of him during those years. And while the romance ended, its place in country music history remained secure, a reminder that behind the biggest names in the genre are love stories as complex as the songs they sing. Love has always been at the heart of country music, but as these stories show, it's rarely simple. Some of these romances burned fast and bright. Others lingered for years in quiet secrecy. They inspired songs, changed careers, and left marks that can still be felt decades later. Which of these hidden love stories surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold tales from behind the curtain of country music.